Okay, this scene right here is one that I just stamped out, and you'll see how I made it in this instructional video here. My approach on this scene was to come at it from an angle primarily of color. I wanted to do something in purple-violet tones. And when I started laying the colors down, one of the colors here, the Distress Ink color, had a little bit of warmth to it. It wasn't just mere purple. It had a little bit of a, it was a slight orangish tinge to it, so it kind of livened up an otherwise cool composition. And sometimes when you go with just one temperature, it can have kind of a flattening effect. Okay, so after using this Distress Ink right here, and I wasn't anticipating that, but I wanted to go even further with that kind of warm foundation color, so I added the pale orange into this color scheme, which is basically cool tones like this. And my approach to the imagery was to stamp them in kind of lighter tones, depending on what distance they represented. So it's this stamp right here, done in medium and very light tones, and then just, reserving the darkest of color, not even black, for the foreground here. Okay, so this is the video on how this was created. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, to start off this scene, we're going to stamp out Lakeside Reflections Large. It's a large stamp with a lot of solid area, very bold in its shape and surface area. I'm going to stamp it out in kind of a medium tone. This is a pale violet. And before I stamp it out, I'm going to wipe off the bottom portion of it, which is down here. And hopefully that will stamp out lighter, and in the end it's going to represent kind of a mist rising off of the body of water. And therefore I want it nice and light in that area. The impression itself is going to be fairly light too. Remember, we're going with the pale violet as opposed to kind of a darker tone here. I want this scene to be primarily about color and lighting, and that's why I'm not going in with something darker. Okay, now that was the pale violet. It's fairly bright. It's too bright for my taste, but it'll be fine in the end, or hopefully. You can see where I've kind of blotted off a lot of the image down below. Okay, now this is a deep lilac, and it should be a little bit lighter in value than the pale violet. At least I hope. I should have tested it, but I have a feeling it's kind of light. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit higher in the horizon here, and hopefully if this is a lighter color, it will look like it's farther back in the scene, just by virtue of it being a lighter value. There's kind of more atmosphere and more, mist between you and the image, therefore it's, lighter in the, back of the distance. And, I don't know, let's see. While we're at it, why not? Let's go even farther back, stamping it up even higher in the scene. I rotated my card so that, you know, this is in a nice comfortable stamping position. I'm not going like, you know, stamping it out there. Okay, just a little bit of rock. So we have 3 rocks. Kind of has a, you know, pathway for the eye to kind of go in this graceful curve, you know. Back up the, I don't know, inlet or whatever this is going to represent. Alright, now we have all this area in here. I'm thinking about adding a little bit of texture. Let's keep it nice and light in value again. Just to get a little bit of texture. Putting a few streaks in there. Okay, something like that. A little bit of visual texture to keep things interesting. And that should all smooth out when we get into it. I'm putting together kind of a range of tones here, a range of values kind of within the color family that I'm going to be working in. Violets, pink, blue, maybe some eggplant. Yeah, the Memento Summer Sky might look nice. I think I'm going to start off with the milled Lavender Distress Ink. Okay, stylus tool tip, loading it up with ink. This lavender has a little bit of warmth to it, and sometimes in this cool, otherwise cool composition, or what will end up being, you know, relatively cool composition when we're talking about violet tones, that type of purple, it's nice to have a little bit of, you know, some slight variation in terms of temperature, so this color has a little bit of that inherently in the hue itself. Okay, but if I didn't have this, and if you want to get a little bit of a warm tone, I can go with something, if you have like a tan color or something, you can lay some of that down, then put some pink or something like that on top. Like, for example, you know, something like this. This is a pale orange, and this is a bubblegum pink. Both are very light in value. Okay, so just lay one down, you know. Doesn't matter which one you use first, or Peach Bellini would be a good one. Okay, now this is a very light tone. It's a very light value, okay, in terms of this Distress Ink. Because it isn't getting any darker isn't indicative of something not working. It's just simply that's what value that, you know, that pad is, that color. But don't rush it, you know, just keep laying it down. What we're doing is we're also layering and kind of almost lubricating the page. And as I do that, you know what I think? I think I am going to put down a layer of this Peach Bellini just to keep things interesting, you know. Warm it up a little bit, kind of set a foundation temperature for these other colors to come. The Marvy inks inherently aren't very, they don't glide across the page quite as gracefully as, you know, the slower drying inks. So, getting a good foundation with the Distress Ink was a good idea. Okay, this is pink, and it's a bubblegum pink. And why am I going to the bubblegum pink? For me, it's one of the lightest of the Marvy pinks. And, you know, if you have lighter, you know, really light values of whatever color family you're working in, I would recommend always starting off with the lightest ones, because you can always go darker, but you can't necessarily take off color. You can't remove it. Okay, so starting light, you know, that's never going to hurt you. And you can kind of get the gist of what that hue will look like on your scene in a very light tone. And then if you like it, you can always move into your darker versions. Alright, let's see. Deep Lilac. The Deep Lilac, I believe, is the color that we stamped out that background, or the two background Lakeside Reflection larges in. And when you start getting into the colors in the blending process that you've used on the scene to stamp your imagery in, it really starts to tie everything together by having that color in the toning process. Okay, so what that means is if we see purple, you know, imagery in there, it probably means that there's that color of light hitting those objects and, you know, coming back to our eye. So it only stands to reason that, you know, we incorporate that color into the scene, because if that's, you know, that color is hitting trees, that color is probably hitting all the surrounding objects too, and areas. Okay, the background is getting pretty obscure, you know, because again, this is the color that we stamped it out in, so I'm taking that same color and putting it right over the top of it, so it's really starting to disappear a little bit. And that's what I kind of want. I want that color to blend in with the background, and the image is stamped in that color. Because, yeah, it's really starting to kind of come together a little bit more. Wait till we get to that color and we start blending it down in here, and that will get incorporated in with the scene. Okay, but before we get to that, I want to kind of mellow the scene out a little bit more. This is a blue hue. It's the Salvia Blue, and it's the lightest value of the Marvy pad colors. So again, I'm starting with a very light value of it, because if I like it, I can always add more, or I can move up into a darker tone, right? Okay. Okay, kind of, you know, deepening the atmosphere, in my opinion. Alright, let's move into the pale violet. Pale violet is a fairly bright color, so let's be careful not to overuse it. I'm kind of dry brushing it now. That's what it feels like. The brush is, not brush, but the stylus tool tip, the foam, is fairly dry. See that right there? It's just a really dry version. It's not that on the tip. It's very dry right now, so I have a lot of control over it. If I want that color anywhere, I just tap it a few times and it builds up a little bit, and I can see it. I don't want to have some kind of real, gestural, approach to this where it's really thick on here and I'm doing these swatches across there. There might be a time for that somewhere, but not in this process, for me at least. I'm trying to maintain control of the rate of application. All right. Here's this eggplant. Eggplant, for those that know it, it's a fairly dark value. Okay, that seems safe to use, though. My eggplant pad is fairly dry at this point in time. So I'm not laying down too much of that color. Eggplant, by the way, is an Adirondack. So, trying to work that atmosphere in there. Let's use a little bit of this. I used this in the last lesson scene that I did. It's the manganese blue. It doesn't come in pad form. It only comes in the pen form. This is a nice wide tip right here. And I really like this color because it's very light and very bright. Alright, now I'm laying it over, other colors right here, so it's not going to be light and bright blue. You can see that blue right there, it's really light, and I can introduce that color into a few different areas in a very light version of it. Just for the sake of this, I'm wondering... I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to go for that impression up there of this. I can't even see anymore, but there's 1, 2, 3 impressions. I think just for the sake of using the same stamp, again, I'm going to do it a darker version of it right down here. Okay. Let's see here. I'm doing a test print. I want to know how dark this Eggplant is. And it's dark enough for my eye. Okay. I don't want to line it up perfectly with that impression up there. So I'm going to bring it over a little bit. Okay. Let's go about right here. Now, how about that? Kind of just a, I don't know, 2-inch square area. Yeah, that's good. A little imbalanced though. Let's go for another impression of it on the other side. Changing the height a little bit from this other foreground impression. Okay. Dark, medium, light, close, you know, farther, and furthest off in the distance. So using values to define space, and not space, but more distance. All right, here. I want to get a little bit more texture into that water. Okay, here we go. I'm going to zoom out here. I'm real conscious of kind of not doing the work in the main viewing area of this video. I just watched the last video I did and realized I was kind of working like out off camera, you know, half the time, especially when I zoom in. So I know I tend to remember that for a little bit, 2 or 3 videos, and I kind of, you know, do another one and I completely forget about it. I don't know, you get stamping and it's, you know, you get into kind of what you're doing and kind of forget what you're doing too. Okay, this is the Eggplant. This is the Tiny Rocks stamp. I don't want it too dark. I just kind of blot some of them off a little bit here and there. Go for a second impression. Let's see if we can get a second impression in there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Down there. I don't see it as representative of rocks on the surface of the, you know, coming out of the water, but kind of more like you're, you know, seeing, you know, there's crystal clear water and you can see kind of the rocks underneath the, you know, the surface. This is the tack and peel sticky. You see that little thing on there? It's you put bare acrylic on it. It's super sticky. Mine got completely dusty and nothing would stick to it after a while, so I followed the instructions just to put it under, you know, water, and just kind of took off all the lint and every dust that was on it. And this thing is so sticky again, it's crazy. Look at that, I can barely get off this protective sheet. Alright. I was thinking about this fisherman and boat stamp. Actually, it's boating fisherman. Maybe like that. I thought about maybe like that. Like they came in through this area. I thought this image right here, I haven't used it in a while, but I always felt this image had a lot of kind of atmosphere inherent in it. Again, I'm stamping this out in that eggplant, and I'm blotting off some of the texture around it because I'm going to be stamping it in some fairly light area, so I don't want it to look like a, you know, rectangle in that illuminated space. Okay. All right. Let's grab some pigment ink here and really get some additional atmosphere added in. Okay. Alright. I promise I'm going to try to remember to work in the frame. The frame here. Okay, let's see. Color box, pigment ink, frost white, slow drying pigment ink, dabbing it on with a kind of a frayed cotton swab. Now, when I first started using this ink, and I, you know, was thinking about doing kind of effects, you know, that might represent atmosphere and fog or something like that coming off of a lake. Most of the times I would stamp out this image, or this type of image, in you know, just a standard dark tone. But then I'd have to add so much of the pigment ink to kind of make it look foggy and misty that I just started out, you know, why don't I just, instead of stamping it out dark and really having to take out a lot of that with, you know, a lot of layering of white on top, why not we just kind of wipe off the bottom, you know, like that, with a paper towel or something like that before you stamp it out. Therefore it's inherently lighter. You know, it should have been apparent, but I'm a slow learner, so kind of finally came to me one day, and you know, that it kind of expedites the process if that's what you're kind of going for, you know, in a given area. Just you know, keep it nice and light in that area. Okay, okay, let's get in here. The base of the subject matter. Really adding a lot of ink down there. You see it? right in there. You see where the image is, it's lighter. Okay. This is a very dry application too, and I'm going with a kind of light, delicate touch, but not too delicate. I mean, it's not precarious or something like that. I'm just not pounding it into the, you know, the page. Sometimes if you do that, in fact, you end up kind of removing ink more than applying it. So just keep it light, you know, go for multiple taps as opposed to, you know, trying to, you know, put a couple taps down and thinking, uh-oh, you know, I can't see anything. So we go harder, you know, and then it kind of leaves a big ball of ink or something like that that we don't want. So just kind of build it up gradually, and what I'm doing is, you know, in some areas, if I want it lighter, and it just doesn't seem to be getting any lighter the more I tap, what I do is I let it set up for a little bit, ink up it again, and then go right over the top of it again, kind of with another layer. Now, okay, I just added too much there, so I'm kind of, you know, I switch sides like that. I'm going in with the drier side and kind of dabbing in there, and what that starts to do is it starts to remove the ink. Okay, I've added some right here. I'm adding it in the lighter areas because in a lighter area, you know, it stands to reason that that vapor, that moisture in the air, is going to be illuminated more. So that's where I'm adding most of my ink, in those light areas. If I add it in the dark areas, it stands up too much. Okay, like that. So you just take it off. Okay, well, where are those light areas, you know? Now I'm talking about it. It's right here, here, and down there, right? So that's where I'm kind of focusing most of that. There's this tree up here. Okay, let me see if I can show this on camera. Okay, you see where that tree is all kind of one value right there? And the light is coming from the left side of it? Okay. Add a little bit down like this. Kind of don't do it over the whole tree. But if you do it on the side of the tree, facing the light, now you can have a little bit of tonal variation there. You see it? There, those branches out there. They're lighter than the other side of the tree. They're lighter than these ones over here, right? So it kind of reiterates light direction as well. Some of these trees, right here, done in the pale violet, trying to use my compass as a pointer. You see it right in here where they're lighter? See that right in here? And that's where I've added some pigment ink, otherwise it would be this color. So it kind of mutes it a little bit. And hopefully it looks like light coming through. You can see where, again, down here, where I've lightened that up a little bit. Okay. Okay, this is where I always mess up here in terms of video production. Using this pen, I'm always working down here. Okay. Okay. Try to pull these trees out from the background. There's not a lot of contrast though in this scene because I didn't go super dark in the toning process. So kind of adding a few little highlights to the tree. You know, it's a little bit more subtle. Okay, see it in here? Right around in here. See a couple little dots right up there, just to kind of pull it out from the background. Now, for these trees, the light is coming from the right of it to the right of it, so I'm putting a lot of highlights on the right side of the branch, and a few little highlights within the you know, that grouping of trees, and just to kind of round it off a little bit more. Can you see those little highlights? Let's do the same for the, I guess, the mid-ground trees. I'm not going to spend too much time doing this because, you know, the effect is, it's very subtle. Again, I'd be able to see this dot a lot more if, you know, the scene was darker or the image that I'm putting them on were darker. Okay, let's see. Some little shimmering little highlights in the distance. You can see those ones right here. Yeah, maybe I'll put some on those. Okay, and okay. There's a little ball of light here. Let's kind of move that lighting into the surrounding area in the form of kind of little shimmering water. Now, I don't want it to look like that. Those two guys, you know, in that boat are kind of, you know, hooked up on some rocks or something like that. So I'm going to add a little bit of texture right over the top of this. Lake or ocean or whatever. Okay. There's some light coming from behind that corner. Okay, let's see if I can show you this right here. See that? Where there's dots, then it kind of tapers off out here because it's in shadow. So you wouldn't be able to see, you know, illuminated illumination down there. Okay. Rocks have some highlights inherently on them. Let's go and see if there's any opportunity for reiterating that in the form of a, you know, white gel pen effect. Okay, there's the rocks. See? And that one really popped out with a few little dots on it, but see that right there? And nothing over here, but it gets kind of lighter and lighter. And let's do the same thing for the rocks in the distance. few little highlights in the water. I kind of wanted to vary the kind of little dots a little bit more. Just another little lid area, just simply because I didn't tone it out. I wasn't necessarily going for anything real specific. That's just kind of the way it turned out. But, I just left some areas light, and the areas that kind of remain light, weren't too planned out or something like that even while I was doing it. I just kind of do a couple streaks, and wherever those ones are, that's my lit area. Okay. Highlights right in here. Here. And look at that shimmering water. Okay. And, since I have them, not that pen. Let's put a little bit of tone. Well, I want to go something very light. These are alcohol-based markers, and just to kind of flesh these fishermen in a little bit. I'm giving it the same kind of treatment, that I did with it. That I did in the toning process, kind of going with those types of colors, Okay. My was kind of, when I looked down here, I thought, some of the pigment ink kind of disappeared a little bit. It's either that or it dried, and when it dried slightly more, well, it was translucent to begin with, but it dried slightly more translucent, so let's add a little bit more, no, I don't want it opaque, I want it to look like mist, but slightly more opaque, and they're slightly more lit. Sometimes these scenes look different in their wet form, or I guess I should say not scenes, but inks look different in their wet form than in their dry form. So sometimes you gotta go and do little touch-ups here and there. And I usually recommend spraying your scenes. And I have a little thing that goes into spray fixatives and whatnot on the website in the information section under, I think it's the materials FAQ FAQ. Frequently asked questions for those that don't know. Alright, I'm almost done here. Going in and adding a little bit more mist on the lake surface, water surface. Doesn't have to be a lake. Alright. So there's my purple scene. I kept it fairly light, and here's the thing here, going back to what I was talking about. I'm kind of looking at the, the screen here on the camera, but I don't know what you're going to be seeing on your computer, but I don't know if you can tell, but naturally these are purples and whatnot. There's pinks in here, but can you tell that this is kind of, it's warmer tone back through here a little bit, and I feel that that really adds to the richness of the overall composition when you have that warmth in an otherwise cool color scheme, you know, when you're talking about purples. So, anyways, that's that. Fairly minimal approach when it comes to the scene. I mean, it was using this one stamp several times, and that one stamp represents foreground, midground, and background. It wouldn't, I don't think it would look good just to do the whole thing like boom, 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 you know what I mean? So symmetrical, you know, like that, that, that. I guess you could if you're, you know, want to make a point about something, but staggering it about, little bits of it here, left and right, you know, 3/4, or I don't know, 2/3, 1/2 use, you know, and that, it was used up here, you know, minimally. But anyways, you can, you know, really get a lot out of a single stamp if you just kind of, you know, use it in a different way, you know, within a scene. And this is just a 1/4 page scene right here, so. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the scene, and I enjoyed working with the purple tones. Used to be my favorite color as a kid, and haven't done a scene in that, you know, in quite a while. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.